André Rieu, the world-renowned violinist who built a musical empire playing waltzes, recently canceled all his performances after a terrifying collapse at the age of 74. His body finally gave out during a tour stop in Mexico City, leaving fans disappointed and forcing his team to shut down the rest of the shows. With his health in question, his son has now taken charge of the massive enterprise he built. The shocking reality is that the man known for doing 100 concerts a year and owning 80 properties may be facing retirement, despite having once declared that he would perform until the age of 140. His last show in Maastricht may have been his final farewell. Born in 1949 in Maastricht, Netherlands, Rieu grew up in a household where music was everything, but emotional warmth was rare. His father, a stern conductor of the Maastricht Symphony Orchestra, valued discipline over affection. As the third of 6 children, André described their home as more of a military camp than a nurturing family environment. His parents, strict Roman Catholics, enforced silence, rules, and isolation. Friends weren't allowed over, laughter was scarce, and emotional expression was discouraged. Rieu once said, "My parents didn't love me very much." That belief wasn't just a feeling, it was something that deeply shaped him. From a young age, Rieu's spirited personality clashed with his parents' rigid expectations. His mother prioritized academic success and musical precision to the point where being called an artist by teachers offended her. André often felt unseen unless he was flawless. He later spent years in therapy trying to understand the emotional void of his childhood, an emptiness that may have fueled his future passion for transforming classical music into something joyful and accessible. At just 5 years old, an unexpected inspiration struck. Rieu didn't fall in love with the violin itself but with his beautiful, blonde, 18-year-old violin teacher. He was so enchanted by her that he could barely focus during lessons. But that crush gave him a reason to keep playing. He watched her every move, her fingers, her technique, her sound. While other children were still learning basic notes, André had already discovered vibrato, the expressive wobble in tone that gives music emotion. From that moment on, it was never about perfection, it was about feeling. As he grew older, tensions with his father intensified. André wanted to bring life and joy into classical music, while his father saw that as a disgrace. When he shared his dream of performing waltzes, his father coldly replied, "I didn't educate you to do waltzes." The rift deepened when André introduced his future wife, Marjorie. Instead of welcoming her, his mother asked her to leave and treated André like a child. That moment marked a turning point. He walked out with Marjorie and never looked back. His parents never attended any of his concerts, not even after he began filling arenas across the world. When his father died in 1992, he passed without ever witnessing André's success. Despite the rejection, André was quietly formulating his vision. While playing in his father's orchestra, he observed a troubling pattern. Many musicians seemed disconnected from the music. They chatted about the weather, grumbled about paychecks, and played without passion. Yet during encores, when they performed Strauss waltzes, the audience transformed. Smiles spread, people swayed, and the atmosphere came alive. That was the moment André realized the kind of music he was meant to play, not for critics, but for connection. One experience drove this revelation home. While playing a gentle serenade for a dying woman who hadn't opened her eyes in days, something extraordinary happened. She opened them. That encounter revealed the real power of music. It wasn't about accuracy or approval, it was about stirring the soul. That moment planted the seed of an idea, to form his own orchestra. In 1978, at the age of 29, and with a newborn son at home, Rieu took a bold step. With little money and modest resources, he founded the Maastricht Salon Orchestra, a small group of musicians who played waltzes and forgotten salon music. They performed wherever they could, at weddings, in town halls, and in border towns near Germany and Belgium. The gigs were humble, and the pay was low, but André was doing what he loved. One night, during a small performance, he played Franz Lehar's Gold and Silver Waltz with deep emotion. Something shifted. It felt as if the music responded to him. That night convinced him that this was his true calling. He didn't care if critics mocked it as cheesy or if the elite turned their noses up. He believed classical music could be fun, emotional, and accessible, and he was determined to prove it. By 1987, nearly a decade into leading the Salon Orchestra, André faced a crossroads. At almost 40, the format felt too limiting. The excitement had faded. He craved something grander. He didn't just want to play music, he wanted to create magic. He longed to revive the spirit of Johann Strauss, who used to conduct while playing the violin with animated movements and infectious energy. Rieu wanted to recapture that vibrance and bring it into the modern world. It was a risky dream. Starting a new orchestra meant hiring professional musicians, which required serious money. And classical music was hardly known for financial boldness. But André followed his heart. On January 1, 1988, the Johann Strauss Orchestra debuted with 12 musicians and a modest crowd. It wasn't traditional. The musicians didn't wear black. The stage wasn't stiff or formal. Instead, there was laughter, lighting, folk melodies, and theatrical flair. Critics called it cheap, gimmicky. But the audience? They loved it. They clapped. They smiled. They felt it. And that was all the validation André needed. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. In May 1995, during the Champions League final in Vienna between Ajax and Bayern Munich, something unprecedented happened. At halftime, Rieu and his orchestra stepped onto the football pitch and performed Shostakovich's Waltz No. 2. The melody was already familiar in the Netherlands thanks to a commercial, but no one anticipated what followed. 50,000 fans began swaying, humming, and immersing themselves in the music. It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The moment was broadcast live by cameras to an audience of 300 million across Europe. It wasn't merely a halftime performance, it was a cultural shockwave. In the aftermath, André Rieu sold 200,000 CDs. His album Strauss & Company, which had been released the previous year, suddenly skyrocketed in popularity. It remained at the top of the Dutch charts for 19 consecutive weeks, ultimately becoming the best-selling album of the entire decade in the Netherlands. People who had never shown interest in classical music began purchasing his records, attending his concerts, and discovering a new love for the waltz. That football match is still regarded by music historians as the turning point when Rieu became more than a violinist, he became a phenomenon. But the acclaim wasn't universal. The classical music establishment pushed back fiercely. Critics labeled him a fraud, accused him of undermining centuries-old traditions, and derided his approach as turning classical music into spectacle. One prominent conductor even described his performances as musical pornography. Purists were appalled by the extravagant costumes, the humorous stage antics, simplified musical arrangements, and over-the-top production. In 2008, controversy deepened when Rieu unveiled a full-scale replica of Vienna's Schönbrunn Palace, including working fountains, ice rinks, and horse-drawn carriages, as a stage set. The project cost €34 million and provoked outrage among traditionalists. Nevertheless, Rieu stood firm. He believed music should be accessible to everyone, not confined to elite concert halls. His mission was to break down barriers so that children, parents, professors, and cleaners alike could enjoy the same melodies long trapped in rigid tradition. And the public responded. His concerts drew massive crowds, and fans danced in the aisles. They didn't just enjoy the music, they bought it in record numbers. Though Strauss & Company had already made waves in 1994, its popularity surged after that pivotal 1995 performance. In the Netherlands alone, it sold 750,000 copies within a few months. In Germany, it broke into the top 5 on the charts, an extraordinary feat for a classical album. Eventually, the album sold over 3 million copies worldwide, outperforming global pop icons like Celine Dion and Bon Jovi in many European markets. Record stores took notice, expanding their classical music sections. Industry insiders dubbed the phenomenon the Rieu effect. Universal Music confirmed that his releases were more profitable than those of any other classical musician. Rieu wasn't just creating music, he was reshaping the music industry. It all began with a bold move in 1987 when Rieu named his orchestra after Johann Strauss. Many saw it as arrogant, but over time, Rieu proved them wrong. Rather than replacing Strauss, he revived his legacy. In the 1980s, Strauss's waltzes were fading from public consciousness, rarely performed. By 2010, thanks largely to Rieu, performances of Strauss's works had increased 16-fold. What began as a 12-member ensemble had grown into a 60-piece orchestra, larger than Strauss's own. In 1999, marking the 100th anniversary of Strauss's death, Rieu released a tribute album and expressed deep admiration for the composer. Even the Austrian government honored him with one of its highest awards for preserving and revitalizing the nation's musical heritage. André Rieu didn't just perform classical music, he transformed it into a global sensation. In 2008, he stunned the world by taking a massive replica of Schönbrunn Palace on tour. This wasn't just a scenic backdrop, it featured real fountains, chandeliers, ice rinks, and even horse-drawn Viennese carriages. The setup rivaled the scale of rock concerts and exceeded the production of many pop icons. Rieu's goal was to deliver the elegance and charm of Vienna to those who could never afford to visit. The logistics were staggering, each setup required 100 workers and 6 days of construction. But the payoff was immense. Stadiums across Europe and Australia were filled to capacity. In Melbourne, 38,865 attendees packed the Telstra Dome, setting a record for the largest classical concert in Australia. Across 3 performances in the city, nearly 90,000 people attended. European venues sold out just as quickly. At one point in Australia, Rieu's DVDs occupied 8 of the top 10 spots on the charts, surpassed only by Pink and AC/DC. This was no passing trend. Rieu's popularity soared to the point that his tours ranked among the top 10 highest-grossing globally, alongside Madonna and The Police. Quite the feat for a man dubbed the King of the Waltz. His album and DVD sales earned him more than 500 platinum awards, an unparalleled achievement in classical music. To honor him, Universal Music presented him with a custom chrome violin trophy, hailing his accomplishments as unprecedented in the industry. However, his journey was not without heartbreak. In 2016, a tragedy struck during what should have been a joyous Christmas tour in the UK. Rieu's longtime trombonist, Ruud Merckx, died suddenly from cardiac arrest while asleep in Leeds. He had been with the orchestra for over 20 years. His wife, also a violinist in the ensemble, was by his side. The couple had 2 children waiting back home. The loss hit the orchestra like a shockwave. Rieu immediately cancelled that night's Nottingham performance and later postponed the remainder of the UK tour, including stops in London, Birmingham, Manchester, and Glasgow. He had often called his orchestra a family, and he meant it. Many members had been with him for more than a quarter century. Losing Merckx just before Christmas was deeply painful. He was flown back to the Netherlands, where he passed away 5 days later. When Rieu finally resumed touring in the UK in March, something had shifted. The performances still held their magic, but the audiences were smaller. The memory of the December tragedy lingered for both the public and for Rieu himself. He had spent decades captivating global audiences with his performances, but in March 2024, a return to Mexico City nearly brought him to his knees. At 74, Rieu was still globetrotting with youthful energy until his health failed. After just 2 shows, he collapsed from a punishing combination of jet lag, high altitude, and a severe flu. Mexico City's elevation of over 2,000 meters proved too much. Even orchestra members suffered from nosebleeds and exhaustion. But Rieu's condition was worse. He was feverish, dizzy, and described himself as feeling 100 years old as he sat backstage that night. He called his wife and uttered words he had never said before, "I don't want another opening concert day like this." For the first time, the tireless showman acknowledged that he might need to ease his pace. It was a moment of vulnerability from a man known for his unbreakable spirit. The concerts were cancelled, leaving 40,000 fans disappointed, and the performer who took pride in never missing a show had to return home. But this wasn't an isolated incident. André had been pushing through illness for years. Back in 2010, a viral infection in his inner ear caused him to lose balance, bringing his tour to a halt for months. Even in 2019, he took the stage despite battling a high fever. He never let the public see his pain until Mexico. There, his legs trembled, and he genuinely feared he couldn't go on. This time, he said it aloud. Once he returned to Maastricht, André made a decision: he would no longer subject himself to that kind of physical strain. His son, Pierre, who had already assumed most of the business duties, took further control, transforming how tours were planned. No more grueling travel across continents, no more pushing himself to exhaustion. They began focusing on smaller, more manageable performances, confined to Europe. International tours were likely a thing of the past. Pierre evolved from a business manager to his father's protector. Over the years, he gradually lifted the operational burden from André, handling logistics, managing the crew, and ensuring the show ran seamlessly. Once a perfectionist obsessed with every detail, André came to trust Pierre fully. Their bond deepened through every health scare, with Pierre quietly taking the helm, allowing his father to continue performing, but without jeopardizing his well-being. Yet André's path has involved more than health crises and standing ovations. In 2015, he encountered an unexpected legal controversy unrelated to music. During one of his celebrated summer concerts in Maastricht, 11 Romanian children performed as part of an ensemble led by pan flute legend Gheorghe Zamfir. All appeared to go smoothly until Dutch authorities imposed a massive fine, claiming the children had violated labor laws by performing beyond the legal hours for minors. The penalty, originally €236,000, was eventually reduced, but it remained one of the most significant cultural fines in Dutch history. André's team fought the allegations, arguing the children had merely returned on stage to wave during the curtain call and that they were under Zamfir's supervision, not André's. After 2 years of legal battles, the court ruled in André's favor, confirming he wasn't their employer. Although the fine was dismissed, the episode left a blemish on his public image in the eyes of some critics. Despite such challenges, André never lost his deep bond with people. In 2019, when a band of mentally disabled musicians had their instruments stolen, André didn't hesitate. After reading the story in the newspaper, he stepped in and replaced €20,000 worth of gear, no press release, no media spotlight, just a quiet act of generosity. When the Notre Dame Cathedral was devastated by fire, he offered 700 tons of steel for its restoration, a gesture just as discreet, revealing a side of him that rarely makes headlines. Then there's his cherished Stradivarius. At one point, financial strains nearly compelled him to sell it. He listed the instrument at an impossibly high price to ensure no one would actually buy it. Once his situation improved, he removed it from the market. That violin is more than an instrument, it's a piece of his soul. Today, he plays a rare 1732 model, which he sends to Vienna twice a year for meticulous maintenance. A master craftsman disassembles it, revarnishes it, and ensures its pristine condition. It is treated like treasure on every tour. Though André Rieu is the familiar face of the world's most joyful orchestra, behind the ever-smiling violinist lies a quietly built empire, held together by family and carefully guarded secrets. At the heart of this is his wife, Marjorie. Fans may know her simply as André's life partner, but she's far more than that. For decades, she has composed music for the orchestra behind the scenes, never seeking credit. Her influence is embedded in the orchestra's sound, subtly guiding its evolution. As André took the spotlight, Marjorie remained in the shadows, helping him rediscover excitement for music when the classical world felt stale. It was also Marjorie who inspired one of their boldest decisions, purchasing a centuries-old castle. The idea came while they were on vacation and learned from their accountant that a section of the 15th-century Maastricht castle was for sale. Without hesitation, Marjorie said, "Sell more records." And they did. The Rieu family bought the castle, not just as a residence, but as the headquarters of their entire musical operation. André personally designed its interiors, blending Austrian, Bavarian, and Venetian influences to transform cold stone halls into a warm, inviting dreamland. Today, the castle serves as an office, rehearsal space, and performance venue, a living testament to their vision, echoing with music and the sound of pivotal family decisions. Now, the next generation begins to find its place in this musical dynasty. André's 9-year-old granddaughter, Daisy, is already rehearsing piano pieces with the orchestra. It's not for publicity, it's simply how the Rieu legacy unfolds, quietly, lovingly, and through sheer talent. André understands this intimately. He grew up surrounded by music, and now Daisy is walking the same path. Just as her father Pierre did before her, transitioning from backstage roles to becoming the orchestra's business director, the family never forces the spotlight. Instead, they pass on a deep-rooted passion, gently and patiently, from one generation to the next. They open the door, let the audience step inside, and wait for the music to start. But André Rieu did more than just perform, he dismantled the barriers that made classical concerts feel like stiff, uninviting rituals. When he took the stage, it wasn't about solemnity, posture, or tuxedos. It was about pure, unfiltered joy. If you felt the urge to dance, he encouraged you to head for the aisles. If clapping, singing, or even crying moved you, then you were exactly where you needed to be. By the late 2000s and into the 2010s, Rieu began telling audiences to skip the ball gowns, unless they intended to spin in them. He reimagined the symphony as a grand celebration, and audiences embraced him wholeheartedly. Traditionally, classical concerts resembled formal lectures more than entertainment, rigid dress codes, hushed audiences, and rules so strict that clapping at the wrong moment earned glares. Rieu despised that environment. After spending years within conventional orchestras, he'd had enough of the emotional disconnect between performers and audiences. So he turned the experience on its head. His concerts started to resemble joyful weddings more than academic recitals, complete with laughter, emotion, and even staged snowfall to suit the mood. But this wasn't just rebellion, it was strategic brilliance. While others stuck to old-school marketing methods like posters and print ads, Rieu embraced social media before his peers even recognized its potential. As traditional orchestras debated whether Instagram was too informal, Rieu had already gone viral. His rendition of Danny Boy in Dublin didn't just reach his fans, it exploded online, drawing millions of views like a hit music video. Yet his true innovation wasn't merely being online, it was in how he used the internet. Every stop on his tour included locally themed music, regional touches, and content that felt customized for each audience. He didn't simply invite fans to watch, he made them part of the journey. From interactive polls and behind-the-scenes previews to fan parties and giveaways, every element was designed to nurture community. He made classical music feel inclusive, like it belonged to everyone, not just those well-versed in Beethoven. Then came the movie theater era. Not content with filling arenas, Rieu brought his performances to cinema screens. But he didn't just film a concert and release it, he crafted a narrative. His 2025 film, The Dream Continues, guided viewers down the riverbanks of his hometown, blending childhood footage, backstage glimpses, and global concert highlights. It became more than music, it became memory, emotion, and a chance for the audience to step into his dream. Even cinemas had to adapt. Gone were the formalities of quiet, upright audiences. Now, viewers could snack, sip, and sink into a night that felt more like a party than a film screening. Rieu understood something profound: people crave authenticity. And he delivered it. At first, critics were relentless. They ridiculed his flamboyant hair, flashy shows, and enormous following. Some even called him classical music's worst development. But things changed when business schools and economists began to study him. While traditional orchestras struggled for funding and played to sparse crowds, Rieu packed stadiums and topped charts. What once seemed like frivolity began to look like the future. Yet behind the fame, André Rieu carries a deeply personal story. The smiling maestro known for waltzes and warmth endured a childhood overshadowed by emotional coldness. His father never expressed pride, never complimented his violin skills, never truly saw him. The hurt ran so deep that André didn't attend his father's funeral. He witnessed his brother escape to another country just to flee the emotional weight. But therapy offered André a path forward, even if the wounds never fully healed. Away from the spotlight, Rieu leads a surprisingly grounded life. While fans picture luxury and opulence, he's spent years quietly investing in nearly 80 properties throughout the Netherlands. It all began after a financial collapse nearly destroyed him. At one point, even his prized Stradivarius was at risk. That close call taught him a hard truth: dreams have costs. So now, instead of castles and extravagance, he invests in solid foundations. That experience shaped him, he became careful, even as his performances remained magical. As his 75th birthday approaches, Rieu is preparing something monumental, perhaps his final grand gesture. He plans to return to his hometown of Maastricht for a concert series that feels more like a fond goodbye than a festive milestone. Health challenges have already led to canceled shows and raised questions about how much longer he can perform. But he's not ready to stop. His son, Pierre, now in charge of the production company, says André would sooner part with his beloved violin than let go of a single orchestra member. That's the depth of his loyalty to the team that stood by him for decades. And when the subject of retirement comes up, André simply chuckles. He jokes that he'll perform until he's 140, and he's only half joking. That fiery determination keeps him moving. Even now, he performs nearly 100 concerts a year, travels with a personal trainer, and tracks his sleep religiously to stay in peak form. He genuinely believes in the healing power of music. Fans have told him. Even doctors have said it, his concerts feel like medicine. And maybe that's why he continues, because for André Rieu, every note is a gift to others, a way to stay forever young, and a means of rewriting the painful symphony of his past.